Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Okay, as the hour is 10 of 7, is posted on the agenda, we will bring the meeting to order. Good evening, Exeter. Good evening to my colleagues on the Select Board, respective staff, those of you here in the Novak room, and those watching at home. and welcome to the June 13th, 2022 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. I'd like to start the meeting this evening by introducing the board. To my right, Selectwoman Lovey Roundtree-Olaf. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
And our Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan. Good evening.
Good evening.
And to my left, the Clerk of the Select Board, Selectwoman Julie Gilman. Good evening.
Good evening.
Selectwoman Nancy Belanger. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Our Town Manager, Mr. Russ Dean. Good evening.
Good evening.
Our Recording Secretary, Joanna Bartel. Good evening, Joanna. Good evening. And my name is Nico Papakostandis. Our board interview has been postponed, so we can get right into public comment. This is an opportunity for the public to come up and make comment. However, we do ask that if your comment is related to something on the agenda, that you wait until that agenda item comes up. And if anyone has public comment, they could step up at this time and state your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. We do have a proclamation to read, which I will read. Town of Exeter, New Hampshire, a proclamation in the year of our Lord 2022, Arbor Day, June 21st, 2022. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees, whenever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now, therefore, I, Nico Papakostandis, Select Board Chair of the Town of Exeter, do hereby proclaim the 21st of June, 2022 as Arbor Day in the Town of Exeter, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day by supporting efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Dated this 21st day of June, 2022. Thank you. And before we move to the approval of our minutes, I would just like to recognize one of our employees, one of our department heads, who recently was the recipient of a very prestigious award. And that individual is here tonight, and it's our Assistant Fire Chief, Justin Pizon. And Justin was recently earned the 2022 Southeast Region Champion for Children Award from the New Hampshire School Administrators Association. Justin was one of 5 award recipients, and it was due to his efforts with the COVID-19 vaccination and all of the work he did with the school department. Back in 2020, I can remember working very closely with Justin, who put in countless hours during his work schedule, but also put countless hours in volunteering. We saw and we heard our fire chief, Eric Wilking, and our health officer, James Murray, almost every Monday during select board meetings. They were in our living rooms. At that time, we were all on Zoom, giving us updates on COVID and all of the hard work that the fire department and all of our first responders, health officer included. Justin was instrumental in procuring and ensuring that the fire department and all of our first responders had enough safety gear and were able to do their jobs throughout the pandemic. Particularly, Justin worked with the school departments when they went virtual back in March. He made sure that the students had what they needed, the teachers had what they needed, and he also worked with the school department when they safely returned to school. Justin was instrumental when vaccines became available to make sure that folks in our community, particularly our seniors, had access to vaccination. Justin came before the board regularly to give us updates and to tell us how hard the department worked to ensure that our community received vaccines. Those that were not able to travel to get vaccinated, they went to them. When vaccines became available for our school children, Justin took the lead, working with the superintendent of schools, the school board, and respective school administrative staff, and made sure that vaccine clinics were set up, and virtually hundreds and hundreds of our elementary school students received vaccines thanks to our fire department, thanks to our school department, and thanks to Assistant Fire Chief Justin Pizon. So Justin, congratulations on this prestigious award, and also thank you very much for what you did for our community through this pandemic. Congratulations. Any members of the board like to comment to Justin?
I mean, just same, right? Thank you for everything you did.
Please.
Justin Pizon, Assistant Fire Chief, but I do want to just acknowledge the fact that it took a village for this to be a success. This was not a one-person effort by any means, and not only the fire department, but all the parents and school administrative officials and everybody else. It was a lot of work, and especially to James Murray. Not only was he here giving you regular updates from a health perspective in town, he was also my right-hand man with taking in vaccinations, because we were also the regional distribution point for all of Rockingham County's vaccines. So we had a lot of moving parts going on. It took a lot of us, and I just want to make sure that this recognition gets acknowledged, that it was several people involved in this. But I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Justin. Mr. Dean, did you want to add anything to add?
I just want to say just what a great job Justin and all the staff associated with the vaccination process did a fantastic job, and the recognition is well deserved. So congratulations, Justin.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to the agenda, we have our Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes from our May 31st, 2022 meeting. And at this time, I'd ask if there are any revisions or amendments to the minutes. Okay, then seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of May 31st, 2022.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We have one appointment this evening from our interview at our last meeting. I would entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Bob Dudra to the Recreation Advisory Board with a term to expire April 30th, 2024.
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion?
While I was not here for the board interview, I do know Bob and have met with him about this position, and I feel very comfortable recommending him.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes unanimously. And we have a letter of resignation from Bev Tappan from the Sustainability Advisory Committee. And so at this time, I would entertain a motion to accept Bev Tappan's resignation from the Sustainability Advisory Committee.
So moved, and thank you for your time you did serve on the committee. Very much appreciated. And I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. As the Select Board rep to the Sustainability Advisory Committee since its inception, I particularly would like to thank Bev for her service. She contributed quite a bit as that committee came to form, and she will be missed, but we're thankful for her service. Okay, moving into discussion items. The first is a public hearing with respect to the Friends of Coastal Waters. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
It's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Mr. Dean, is there somebody here to speak to this? The staff?
You can ask, Mr. Chair. I'm looking around the room. I'm not sure.
Sir?
I recognize him from the planning board.
Perfect.
Sir, if you could step up to the podium and state your name, and thank you.
Excuse me. My name is Bill Libby. I'm the board chair for Friends of Coastal Waters. So I'm here. I don't know if you all have questions or what I can share with you about the school and what we're doing.
So I know this went before the planning board. I actually watched that meeting. But for the rest of the select board, if you could just give an overall summary of the school and what you're looking to do.
Sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So our school is a charter school. We got our charter approved in January by the New Hampshire Department of Education. Our school, we're starting out K through 12. And right now we have about 220 students enrolled. The high school is the lowest enrollment right now, which is expected starting out. Our underlying pedagogy is around the Waldorf education, which is about the heart, body, mind, soul of the child and meeting them where they are in their child development. And includes a lot of time going out into nature to sort of let the body reset and then come back in and do the curriculum that needs to be met. We do align our curriculum with the state standards, so children that do come through our school will meet those state standards. And I mean, that's sort of a nice big overview. So,
And what are the hours of operation?
we're looking at the school will be from 8:30 to 3.
Monday through Friday? Okay. Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday, yeah, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 3. And I know at the planning board meeting, there were some questions around traffic, and so we're looking at staggering kids, families drop off in the morning so that there's 15-minute intervals based on grades and enrollment so that we try to limit the amount of traffic.
Are there any buses, or is it just vehicles?
Right now, there's no buses. Right now, it's just vehicles. We're working with the New Hampshire Department of Education potentially to be able to get a van or two to help with, to mitigate that as well.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
I think for the general public who hasn't heard about this, we should describe where it's going to be.
Okay. It's good. So right now, we're working with the owner of the building, the old Tyco building out at 2 Holland Way. And we're currently working with architects to redesign the inside of the building, which basically is just taking down a few walls and putting up some walls. We are going to be remodeling a couple bathrooms and then adding a couple bathrooms so that we meet ADA requirements and also the number of restrooms in the facility. But yeah, it's out on 2 Holland Way, which is a nice spot. It's 14 acres of land. It's a nice big field there for kids to be able to go and play games on, some woods to get around on. So we're excited about the property and being in Exeter. So.
And when does the school open?
We will be opening, we will be following the Exeter School District, the Exeter school calendar.
Okay.
So we'll be opening August 29th this year.
Okay. And you haven't done any traffic studies yet? Because that's a pretty busy...
We haven't done any traffic studies. In looking at and talking with Steve Height with Civil Works, he didn't necessarily see the need for the traffic study because of the width of the road and the amount of breakdown lane in that area on Highland Way.
Okay. Any other questions on the board?
Sure, I do. What is the capacity of the school?
We will have up to 320. So it's a cap of 20 for kindergarten and then a cap of 25 for the rest of the grades. Right now for, like I was saying, high school is lower. We will potentially have about 30 to 40 kids in the high school grades this year.
Got it?
Anything else?
No?
So on the planning board meeting, one of the recommendations that was discussed and this was put in the letter was to investigate the school zone signs.
School signs, yes, we're still working on that. Yes.
Okay.
I've reached out to a number of people and keep getting new contacts to figure out who we have to work with to get that done.
Yeah, and then we did talk about the concern for that intersection.
Yep.
One of the pluses we found was they're altering or start time is starting later, so that middle school on Guinea Road would already be, all that traffic will have been already happening.
Right.
And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
So I mean, I applaud that, but still, assuming some carpooling, we're still talking about several hundred cars.
Yes. Yeah. So, and that's why we're looking at and plan on doing that staggered timing of different grades coming in, so that we take that from, I mean, if they all came in at once, there's potential of about 180 cars, but by splitting it up the way we're looking to split it up, it's going to take it down to about 70 to 80, depending, but it's around 70.
Okay.
Yeah, so can I add? Just,
Please.
I think any intersection problems are on us if it becomes an issue, because they're a school and they don't have to follow our zoning ordinances and things like that.
Right. Mr. Dean, has the DPW looked into possibly putting a light there?
Not to my knowledge. I can check with them on that, but I don't think so at this point.
Okay, I'd be interested, because I know sometimes crosswalks and lights seem like a good idea, but then when you talk to the engineers, they explain why it may not, but I just didn't know if...
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, all right. When will you have your feedback on the traffic studies and the signage information, do you think? So you're still looking at the traffic patterns, correct?
We're not doing a traffic study. We're not required to do a traffic study.
Okay.
We will be aware of traffic and keep an eye on that as far as the traffic flow that's coming through.
Okay.
Yeah, and because we were just learning about this, it was too late to even do something before the end of the school year, so now we have to wait until the beginning of the school year again to monitor
Okay.
Yep.
as a town.
Okay. As this is a public hearing, if there's any member of the public that have comment or questions, they can come to the podium at this time before we close the public hearing. Okay. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Public hearing's closed. Mr. Dean, what next steps as a board do we need to take?
The board has the ability to, just like the planning board did, offer some non-binding comments. So you can deliberate on that now if you'd like. If you'd like to add more to what the planning board already did, you could do that, or echo what the planning board has said as well.
No, I thought the planning board's recommendations were thorough. I wouldn't have much to add to that, but I'll.
No, I agree.
Board.
No, I agree, and it'll be a great opportunity.
It is a great opportunity, and I'm sure we can work together once we see what the actual traffic really is. I mean, that's really my only concern, is I do know that's a busy intersection, particularly in the morning hours, so we'll look forward to working with you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The next item on our agenda was the proposed Stoney Brook development. We have received word this afternoon that the applicant has asked that the board table this discussion at this time. So if that is okay with the board, then we can table that discussion and bring it back at a later date.
I move we table.
I'll second, with no set date yet.
No set date.
Yep.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Passes 5-0. Mr. Dean, that'll be tabled.
Thank you.
Okay, and next, Mr. Pizon, we'll call you up. Thank you, Dave.
Oh, my stuff.
See you later.
Maybe they didn't get them home. That's unfortunate. There was a parrot. Did you read Darren's memo?
All right. So Justin Pizon, Assistant Fire Chief. I'm going to wear my glasses and fog them up, so bear with me.
Join the club, Patrick, join the club.
So I just want to start with a little history. I'll be quick because I certainly respect everybody's time. In about 2006, Stryker, who was an ambulance cot provider, came out with the first power cut, which to us was a pretty big deal because we went from having to pick people up 100% of their weight with the cot to having a button you could press on a cot and make the cot go up. And it had an 800-pound weight capacity, which is significant. So We were fortunate sometime thereafter, 2007 or 8, we were able to procure our first power cots, which push us forward. And, we're trying to obviously prevent back injuries and all the good stuff that comes along with it. Fast forward to my first year in this position, so probably about 2016, Stryker came in with they now offer what was called a power loader system. And he had it in the back of his Stryker van and pulled into the back parking lot. And he loaded himself onto the cot, and I pushed the cot over to the ambulance, and I was able to put him in the ambulance with a single press of a button without lifting any weight at all. And I was amazed. I was like, this is great. And I'm like, how much are they? And he's like, they're like $25,000, and I almost choked. So obviously at that point in time, that wasn't something we were looking to procure, but something that's been on my radar now for the last 5 years when it came to our new ambulance purchases, which we'll have coming up soon at the end of this year. We'll have a new one coming up. So through the Gopher funds and slightly tied to ARPA, I had to follow ARPA rules. We have a grant opportunity that came about for $50,000. That's the maximum award of this grant is $50,000. It's a 10% matching component of that grant. So we kick in $5,000, they kick in $50,000. This grant is called the Locality Equipment Purchase Program, and we were awarded that grant about a week and a half ago. I was trying to, in the packet, I did provide the quote to the equipment with some information. The total cost for us to outfit both of our ambulances with these power load systems with a 3-year extended warranty, which pushes us out, because there's a year warranty, 3 years beyond that, 4 years, was $58,078.56. That was the total cost of install and all the equipment necessary to convert our existing costs over to the system. So I am here tonight to first ask that the grant be accepted so that we could use it. And I put the motion in my, to help out in my memo to the town manager. But it does leave us a little bit short because the total amount that we need to spend is $58,000. So I'm here tonight to ask that on top of the acceptance of the grant, that the town authorize, or the select board authorize, the fire department to spend $8,078.56 out of the EMS revolving fund. That revolving fund, for those who aren't aware, is the fund that we, part of our ambulance billing revenue goes into. And at this time, we have roughly $170,000 in that account. So ample funds. We had no lease payments this year for our ambulance, so we were fortunate, so that kind of kept that balance a little higher than usual. And I would love to have the support from the board so we can move forward in procuring those power load systems.
Okay, great. Any questions for Assistant Fire Chief Pizon?
He answered mine.
It seems
I
okay.
just have a question on how it actually works. The brochure, it makes it look like it actually lowers down to the ground level, so you can roll somebody on instead of picking them
Not
up.
quite. So what happens right now, we have what we call antlers, and antlers, they clip over how to explain, but so the cot doesn't inadvertently come out of the ambulance. There's a safety in the back of that where it catches a bar across the back of the stretcher. Mm-hmm. So you can't inadvertently pull the cot out by accident. Really what this system does is it replaces that particular component, in that when you hook the cot onto this device, it just holds it, doesn't pick anything up necessarily, it holds it level. So in holding it level, once you put the wheels up on the cot, you just slide the whole device into the back of the ambulance. I mean, I think the cost of medical equipment always surprises individuals when they see how much things cost, whether it be regular day-to-day healthcare needs or when it comes to equipment on the ambulance. But these have to meet all the dynamic crash standards that a seat belt or anything else would stand up to. So I understand the R&D that goes into these is pretty significant, and but it's an important piece. And I'm trying to, and when you look at some of these injury reductions, they did limited studies to people that were using these. And when you see 100% reduction in back injuries in some of these services that were using these, I just don't. 100%, I question that. And sure enough, it's in their brochure, 100% reduction in back injuries. So it's pretty amazing.
Absolutely. Any other questions for Assistant Fire Chief Pizon? Okay. Seeing none, then, we have two motions. The first, I would entertain a motion to accept the Locality Equipment Purchase Program grant in the amount of $50,000 for the purchase of 2 MTS power load systems to be installed in Ambulance 1 and Ambulance 2.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. And then also, I'd entertain a motion to expend $8,078.56 from the Ambulance Revolving Fund, which is the 10% matching obligation to the Locality Equipment Purchase Program grant, and the additional funds required to purchase the 2 MTS power load systems based on striker quote number 101-46884, dated June 7th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and
Can I?
Please.
Do we have to have anything for the town manager to sign for the grants or anything like that?
That's a good question.
The town manager and myself we collaborated together on this because it required his input before I could submit the grant.
So to accept the grant, though, do we have to have any signatures for anything?
I'd imagine we will have a signature.
Good question, but I will say,
You're right.
yeah, so I know
I'll
that,
just do a third
Yep.
motion.
Sure.
Is that all right?
It's perfectly all right. So we have a motion and a second for that second motion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
And I'll try to word this. I'm going to move that we, in addition to the 2 motions that we just passed, that the town manager is authorized to sign anything necessary to effectuate these 2 motions.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Selectman Belanger. Thank you.
thank you very
Fire
much,
Chief
and again,
Paisan.
thank you for the recognition. It's very much appreciated. It's very
Thank you.
humbling.
Thank you.
Ben.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along, Mr. Dean, you're going to give us a Primex update on the multi-year agreement for our multiple insurance policies.
Right, so in your packet tonight, you have 2 resolutions. One is for workers' compensation, and the other is for property and liability insurance, both being offered by Primex. The town has participated in this CAP program for a number of years now. This is a contribution assurance program, and basically what it is it sets out caps on increases for both workers' comp and property liability insurance. So we'd be looking to continue our membership in the CAP program with Primex, and like I said, there are 2 resolutions, one for workers' comp, one for property liability to read to continue the membership in this. Workers' comp is a 6% cap, and the property liability insurance is a 7% cap.
Okay, and do the resolutions need to be read into the record, Mr. Dean?
Yes, please.
Okay. I have the workers' comp one. I'm not seeing the property and liability. Do you-
Comes right after, I think. No?
On the printed version, I don't.
It's in the back. It's at the end of that part of the packet.
Right, the resolution is at the end.
Yeah, there are 2, and one's a few pages in, and the other is a few further pages in.
Do you have the property and liability one there? Can I borrow that? Sorry.
You can really-
Okay. And Mr. Dean, I will add, Primex is really the only insurance program or insurance pool in New Hampshire that focuses on municipalities, and while the town could go out to bid to other insurers nationally, Primex focuses on municipalities, and it's not just the insurance that we get out of it, but all of the training.
Correct.
The risk management tools, and even representatives coming to work with the select board for goal setting. I know they've also worked with some of the other committees with their goal setting. So I just want folks at home to understand that this is not just a straight insurance policy, but rather we're in a municipality insurance program.
Yes.
Which we would not get if we went out to bid to a national insurer. So, okay, we have the first resolution to enter the Primex Workers' Compensation Contribution Assurance Program. Resolved to hereby accept the offer of the New Hampshire Public Risk Management Exchange, known as Primex, to enter into its Workers' Compensation Contribution Assurance Program, CAP, as of the date of the adoption of this resolution and to be contractually bound to all of the terms and conditions of Primex Risk Management Pool membership during the term of the Workers' Compensation Contribution Assurance Program. The coverage provided by Primex in each of the membership shall be then set forth in the coverage documents of Primex. I attest that the foregoing is a true copy of the resolution of the governing board of the town of Exeter adopted on this date, June 13th, 2022. Mr. Dean, do you need a formal motion to authorize you to sign this?
Yes.
Then I would entertain a motion to authorize Mr. Dean to sign the resolution to enter Primex Workers' Compensation CAP.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion passes. And we have the resolution to enter to Primex Property and Liability Contribution Assurance Program. Resolved to hereby accept the offer of the New Hampshire Public Risk Management Exchange, known as Primex, to enter into its Property and Liability Contribution Assurance Program. As of the date of the adoption of this resolution and to be contractually bound to all of the terms and conditions of Primex Risk Management Pool membership during the term of the Property and Liability Contribution Assurance Program. The coverage provided by Primex in each year of the membership shall be then set forth in the coverage documents of Primex. I attest that the foregoing is a true copy of the resolution of the governing board of the town of Exeter adopted on this date, June 13th, 2022, and I would entertain a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the resolution to enter Primex Property and Liability Contribution Assurance Program.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Thank you.
Yes,
This is the patent, nope, the other one, I think.
no, these are the
It's got
two.
the other side of the Parks and Rec pickleball conversation, so I need to make sure. I think the one you set down.
This is the one I set down.
Okay.
That's yours.
Is it?
Yep.
Got it.
Because these are my empties.
Okay.
The pickleball cart, it's on the other side.
Got it. It is. Let me get organized. Sorry. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Okay, our last discussion item this evening is a continuation of the pickleball tennis conversation that we had back on May 9th. At that time, we heard from the public. Quite a full Novak room. It's going out to standing room only out in the hall. We heard from the public. Those speaking in favor of pickleball courts at 4 Hampton Road. We heard from folks wanting to continue with the 8 tennis courts. The board then asked the Parks and Rec Department Director, Mr. Bisson, to do a little homework. He's answered all of the questions I think that we asked that night. There is a memo in our packet. Mr. Bisson is also going to speak to a recommendation that the Parks and Rec are going to make with respect to modifying some of the courts, I believe, for a more temporary permanent pickleball, if that's accurate. Like to hear from Mr. Bisson, like to have the board have the ability to ask questions. I will be happy to hear from the public as well. I do request, though, that we don't repeat the conversations we had on May 9th. We understand pickleball, we understand tennis, and we understand what it takes to set everything up. Conversation should be based tonight on Mr. Bisson's memo and also recommendation to the board. So with that, Mr. Bisson?
Here first on town website, but here's some data as well. Mr. Chair, would you like me to go through the entire memo?
If you could highlight, I don't want, please don't read it, it's long, it's
It's very
thorough,
long
it's
memo.
well-written, but if we could hit the highlights on each of the questions.
Sure. Greg Bisson, Exeter Parks and Recreation. As you mentioned, you gave me a lot of homework, and I think we've answered a lot of your questions and given you plenty of data, but I think this is a good problem to have because it shows how active Exeter is. Just to give you a little synopsis, you talked about what requirements would be needed if for pickleball, and USA Pickleball, as it states, 30 by 60 court is the minimum size. When you translate that to 6 courts, that's 10,800 square feet. It's approximately a quarter acre of that we would need just for the courts themselves. So that tells you the space restrictions we're going to have no matter what. And at least a half acre to an acre would be best to fit a standalone court, but parking is going to be an issue, so the larger the better. We did put out a community survey, and now you have the results. The results are on our website as well, and we're continually modifying it, so if anyone hasn't taken it, please do, because we want to make sure we capture the data in real time. Approximately 374 people have responded. 63% of those are Exeter residents. So there's a lot of non-residents that have responded, but it gave us a good synopsis of snapshot, and I'm just going to briefly highlight a few of those, and I apologize for...
While you do that, can I ask you, is it 374 responses, or do you know it's 374 people? Did the survey allow you to identify?
You were able to identify, you had to put your name, or
Okay.
you didn't have to put your name, but you had to put your address. We went through and we did look through for any duplicates. So there are, of course, people that are in the same household, so it's the individuals that are responded.
But just to clarify, so I know in certain Google surveys, it won't allow you to redo the survey if it's coming from the same IP address or if it's coming from the same email address.
We did
So that's not how we verified. I just want to make sure.
We did have people with multiple addresses fill it out, so
Okay.
we did sort that. So, sorry, I'm looking for the first page. And this one was the best data right now that we saw. It broke down by age, but it also broke down the primary playing times, and I think that's one of the real things. Mornings, 7 to 10 a.m. is obviously the most popular, followed by weekdays, evenings from 5 to dusk. So we do know there's a lot of people that do like to play.
Play what?
Play both.
Both, okay.
So we left it both, that if you're a tennis player or you're a pickleball player, and what do you prefer to go up there and play? 63% or 36% of the people responded were tennis players, where 20% were pickleballers. So there is definitely a need, where 14% were interested in playing both. 12% or 11.49 were interested in learning to play pickleball. 10.2% were interested in learning to play both. 3% were interested in playing tennis only, and 3% were no interest whatsoever. They just were interested in it. So it goes through, and I'm not going to go through all the data, and it's on the website, but how often do you use the courts? 30% use them a few times a season. 24.4% uses them 2 to 3 days. So we know we have the same people going up playing week after week. And how many times have you played at the rec park? The biggest percentage was 30%, and that's too many times to count. So we have a lot of people that are returning up there. 60% of the people that took the survey utilizes the rec park courts for tennis only, where 25.13% is pickleball only, and then 9.23 is both. So, I mean, we go into really detailed here. We're asking what programs they'd like to do. One of the things is we do see there's a lot of interest in private tennis lessons. We are going to pursue those even more, but not in a one-on-one setting. Parks and Rec is not made up to be a one-on-one tennis facility. If you're going to learn what you want one-on-one, you got to go to a private facility. It's more of a group play. So those are on there. They're on the website. Please, the survey is still up. We encourage more people to do it. So we broke it down after going there. The most important one was, would you like to use standalone tennis courts at the rec park? Do you want to see them built off-site? Do you want to see them stay there? So 74.19% says yes, we don't have enough public tennis courts, should seek an alternative location for pickleball. Town pickleball courts alternative location, 47.6% said yes, separate pickleball courts from tennis courts. And then 31.4% no, find space at the rec park for standalone pickleball courts. And then no permanent pickleball courts needed were 20.9%. And then it goes into amenities, what you would like to see an alternative, but that's a lot of data I'm going to throw at you, and I don't want to snooze people at home. So what is the cost of building a new pickleball court and have alternative locations been reviewed? Talking to several companies, it's $350,000 to $500,000 for 6 pickleball courts if you were building them alone in ideal conditions. Flat, no ledge, easy to go in, out, minimal excavation. We reviewed all the town parks as you asked. I'm not going to go through all of them because some of them are blatantly obvious. Founders Park, Gale Park, Brickyard, Townhouse Common, Skate Park, Gilman Park, Kids Park. Those all have limitations that really wouldn't allow for pickleball. Tenhampton Road was examined. That would significantly reduce the current and potential parking, thus preventing us using the building as a community center. So that was out there. As Lovey had asked, we looked at 3 locations at the rec park, the green space at the beginning of the park. That would need substantial engineering because all the drainage from Hampton Road and the rec park parking lot drain in that location, and it's evident by seeing the tall grass. We can't mow it because we will sink. Wooded area behind the lower tennis courts, again, the topography is very difficult, would need to be engineered. And then building it close to the pool, one of the things that we're looking at when we looked at all the locations were what could this cause, and a lot of them was noise or too close to abutters, which would be things that we've seen that in York where they're fighting additional pickleball courts being built, but they want to build a pickleball-only club. And then purchasing a piece of property, again, it has to be a minimum of 1 acre, but those are very far and few between in Exeter, and we run into the same problems of high-density residential areas unless we built it on the industrial drive, which could be but there's not 1 acre there. Can tennis and pickleball function together, shared court? In many ways, yes. They're same flat. At this point, the discussion needs to be if the town can manage to have a few or less tennis courts, or if new pickleball courts would need to be built elsewhere. What's the cost of the town to increase the rec park through pickleball tournaments? We do make a substantial fee, but at the same time, they do that helps offset bathroom supplies, court maintenance, upkeep, general expenses. And we're going to a parking pass system this year, as mentioned, for the tournaments. Can the Parks and Rec staff set up breakdown pickleball nets and equipment? We have set up 1 net with some success. It hasn't disappeared and it hasn't gotten damaged. And there is definitely need for more. We did have some ADA players go up and want to use the net, but someone was already currently using it. So that was a whole nother thing where they had a kid of sharing. Can the lower courts be utilized for the pickleball program instead of the upper courts? Yes, absolutely. You've passed it as a board to address some of the issues in the next one. It was ADA accessibility. We've passed it. We have on order an ADA ramp and also widening the gate, so that will soon be ADA. Trying to get a tree company out is a tough time in this time of year, but I do have actually tree companies come in and to give us quotes on tree service. It has been identified that one of the hickories that does overhang the courts has quite a few limbs that would need to be addressed. This has also been addressed to the tree committee.
Thank you.
And the tree committee is in favor of doing whatever it is, especially if it's a hazardous tree, and obviously these concerns were hazardous. And noise, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to reduce the noise coming from 101 unless the town wanted to do a serious investment in a sound barrier wall on 101. So how does the town move forward? This is the big thing. I think it's still a work in progress that we need to look at alternatives, but what we are suggesting is purchasing 6 portable pickleball nets to remain in place in the lower courts for the remainder of the 2022 season. Unfortunately, these pickleball nets are heavy-duty pickleball nets that have to be special orders, so it is a 10-week lag time to get them. But on top of that, we'd also suggested purchasing freestanding fencing of sorts to separate the tennis courts from pickleball, but all of these stuff can be reused. That's the big thing. And then move the pickleball program to the lower courts for the use of assessment after it becomes ADA accessible. Move some benches and bleachers down, as well as purchase windscreens to help prevent the debris from blowing on the backcourt as well. Knowing that eventually all of the courts need windscreens, but at 91 cents a square foot, that is costly. And then give a way for the pickleballers and tennis players to both give feedback. We're going to produce signs with a QR code so people can go on there and immediately put in there, like, I waited, or there's people up here that are abusing the courts. So we want as much feedback. That will be launched. The signs have been ordered. We're just waiting for them to come in. And then during the summer season, have rented pickleball paddles and balls for residents that would like to use them. We also have tennis rackets that I didn't put in here, and tennis balls that people will be able to come and use. So we want as many people coming to the park, utilizing the facility, and then purchase a small container with equipment such as a push broom and a quart squeegee to help clear the debris. I do send my staff up there to blow them off as much as possible, but just only so many times we can. But I think once we do the tree work, I think that will be a big impact on that. So of our proposal, the nets, I have broken it down for you. There's, for nets, it's including shipping, a whopping $13,794. That's exactly the same from every vendor because Douglas Tennis is the one that produces this. So there's no variety in the pricing. The temporary fencing, the cheapest we found are $2,224.61. That's including shipping. $750 for the windscreens for the back courts. Bleachers we've already had because we had two supplied from us from Lincoln Street School when Lincoln Street School converted one of their closets into a education room. And then I'll have to get back to you on the tree and pruning removal. But the total budget would be $16,768.61. This would at least give us the remainder of the 2022 season to evaluate and gather more data and come back to you later and discuss which way we want to move forward, if we want to eventually move forward with a CIP project to build standalone courts, or to convert some of them, or to do it on site. There's my synopsis, Mr. Chair.
Before we open it to the public, I'd like to ask the board if they have any questions or comments to Mr. Bisson, Selectwoman Rountree.
I do. The nets that are the $13,000 nets, would those nets, if we converted the courts, automatically transfer into the permanent ones? Like, are they?
Yes, you can actually bolt them down into.
Okay, so that would. Just want to make sure that that's not an extra cost.
Nope.
Then
we can absolutely reuse them. They do have an option that they have wheels that you can put a foot pedal and move them easily, or you can bolt them down. So either or. They're about 230 pounds a piece, so they're not the easiest. They're not going to blow over. They're heavy duty, unlike the smaller ones that they use temporarily.
Right, and so basically, once those are up there, they're basically up there until.
Yep.
They're there.
Over.
So. Permanent but not permanent conversion.
Correct.
Okay.
Selectwoman Cowan, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't have, I think that this is a smart compromise. So it was a lot of work.
Selectwoman Gilman?
I'm encouraged by the survey, and that you had so many responses, and the level of questions that you asked. And I had a further question, a follow-up on Selectwoman Rountree-Olaf's. So the nets are not permanent. They're what do we call it?
They're portable.
Yeah, no, there's the word in historic preservation, when you want to add something new, it has to be reversible.
Yes.
So this is the concept that she was talking about. My question is, so if we set up the pickleball courts with these semi-permanent, you're looking at it being semi-permanent, like permanent for this?
A trial period. Yeah, we're going to do a trial period, but I think in the survey data does, pretty much a majority of the people would rather play in the upper courts, and that's, I think, a good compromise where if we move the pickleball courts to the lower courts and semi-permanently set them up, gives it an opportunity to address it or assess it and see. Knowing now that with this data, we do know we want to do a lot more tennis program, but at the same time, we don't want to, we've committed to 2 different vendors. We don't want to also undercut their program. So it's a balancing act that we're doing, but it definitely would be a semi-permanent until I come back to you in the fall and with the more data within the QR code.
Well, I appreciate the inclusiveness that we're trying to work towards here by being able to play both sports with as little effort as possible, and for the players. My other question was, so this isn't going to be permanent until we see how it plays out. Pardon the pun, plays out. Are we going to stripe the pickleball courts?
They're already striped, Julie.
I know, but just
we're going to use the
net.
existing facility as is.
Okay, so it has both tennis striping and pickleball striping, okay.
Sorry. So what's if we needed to move these hypothetically so that there were more tennis courts available for lessons or camp or?
Simple pedal to.
So how long does it take and how many people does it take to slide them and do
One
them
person.
adjacent? So they can go parallel to the fence?
Yep.
Pretty easily?
Correct.
Will they all be able to fit parallel to the fence?
They would be pushed back in the back line of the tennis court, so all of them would be parallel to the fence, yes. Behind the current, whatever tennis court they're set up on, you just will have to roll them back against the fence if that's the case. They have used these nets in several facilities around the country, and that's my feedback from my colleagues around the country is this is the way to do it if you want to put a trial period down, but also have a quality net that you don't have to worry about consistently putting together. Because on average, the pickleballers may say it doesn't take as long, but Tara and David Tovey took them 15 minutes to put together one net. So if we had to do it for 6 nets per day, that's an hour a day. So, of course, that was the first time they attempted it.
Selectwoman Belanger.
Yes. QR code. Are you going to have more than that for an option for people for feedback? Because not everybody uses those.
Yes, there'll be a website as well.
Thank you. And if this gets approved tonight, that leaves about 10,000 roughly?
Correct.
11,000. Is that typical to have that fund that low?
Yes, actually, about a year and a half ago, it was about $500.
Thank you. That's what I needed to, I couldn't remember.
Yep. We have, just to remind people, we only have 6 years to expend impact fees for recreational use. So we had a sizable amount and we spent it down upgrading the parks, and same thing here. This is just a simple upgrade.
If approved, it'll be being used for what it's intended to
Correct.
be used for. Thank you.
Everyone good? Mr. Bisson, back to a couple of your answers to your questions.
Sure.
How many tournaments are scheduled for the summer?
2.
2. Okay.
Pickleball or tennis?
Pickleball.
And they're scheduled for when?
July 9th through our 8th, 9th, and 10th, and then August 15th, 12th, 13th, 14th.
Okay. So part of them will overlap with the summer camp hours?
Correct.
Okay. You spoke about permit parking. Can you just, that's something new? I think.
That
So
is
can
something
you-
new that we discussed after knowing that there was an issue. So you will see some signs erected around the tournament time that will have the instructions that reserved for summer camp and pool operations only. And that for those, obviously, summer camp is usually drop off, pick up. It's really a quick turnaround, but those using the pool are usually longer term. They'll be receiving a colored pool pass, different color per day, so we know it's not the same person using the same parking pass. They go to the concession, so when they pay to go into the pool, they'll receive a parking pass that we'll ask to put them in their windshield. And then we're also going to have signage at the front of the park that say limited parking.
And to what degree can we use 10 Hampton Road at this point for parking?
We are actually using 10 Hampton Road for all of our summer camp parking. So summer camp, that was approximately 35 cars. So we already freed up 35 cars to go up there. So we're going to be using it. And then for those weekend tournaments, we're going to ask our other seasonal staff, concession, and the lifeguards to park up there as well. So that will be at full capacity.
Okay. And then you indicated that the 45 to 60 people is not the tournament. That's the regular usage currently?
That's the regular usage currently.
The maximum is 60 people that can play pickleball.
Correct. And they on general, they get, they're very active, and they don't take that much space up, to be honest with you, in the morning. If you go up there Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, it's the parking lot looks good. But it's not overflowing, and it's actually even better now that the yellow shed's gone. It was torn down today.
So how many people do you expect for the tournaments?
Over the whole weekend, 300. So I got clarification from both tournaments. They're not expecting any more than 50 participants on the Fridays that we have summer camp. So it's the equivalent of having our pickup pickleball, but it's for the whole day.
Okay. So that satisfies my concern for summer camp, but with 300 people at one time over the weekend?
No, throughout the different times. So Saturday usually is breaking down to singles, I might have it backwards, and then Sundays are doubles. So they keep them to a manageable.
I'm just concerned about the parking because
sure. And they have secured for the Fridays, and I have it in writing. From the management company, they have 50 parking spaces on Fridays, each of them, and then on the weekends they have access to the whole entire parking lot. So
I saw that in here.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for the work that you've done exploring all of the various parks. You hit the highlights tonight, but going through all of these, you thoroughly outlined the concerns or the issues that would be. So, I'm satisfied that you've explored all of the present real estate that the town has for park and recreation. One question, though, and it's sort of outside the box, but I know you've gone and done this before, at least had conversations, but I'm thinking of two facilities. The Tuck building, which I know you've used in the past during rain and thunderstorms. You've had access to the gym. And I'm not suggesting that the gym be used for this. But have you explored conversation with either the school system or the YMCA? Because I know you've gone to them in the past when programs have overlapped. I'm just trying to think. So again, the whole idea here is to try to make space for everybody to be able to comfortably play what they want when they want.
Absolutely. I've talked to the SAU, and SAU right now, any of their property is valuable. But the YMCA is interested in discussing a private-public partnership with the town on their facility. So that is something that I will be meeting with Kim Myers this week to discuss, and come back to the board to discuss whatever we find.
Okay. All right. Thank you. If there are no other questions at this time from the board, of course, we'll come back and deliberate, but I'd open it up to the public if anybody has any questions or comments regarding what Mr. Bison's discussed this evening. If you'd step to the podium and just state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Nancy Riccio. Did you say address?
Yes, please.
25 Little Pine Lane. Members of the Select Board, I'm here tonight to continue the discussion about the rec courts. I want everyone to be mindful of the fact that we've been coexisting for years. As it is today, both sports can be played on all 8 courts. The main complaint that the pickleball group had at the May 9th meeting, why they want the permanent courts, is it's hard to set up and break down the nets. I have watched several times, and I have timed it myself, and I have seen one older woman do it in under 2 minutes by herself. Yeah.
I don't think so.
I have. Are you calling me a liar?
I don't know who you are.
Okay. Okay, it's certainly, okay.
Well, let's let Nancy speak. Everybody's going to have an opportunity to speak. Please, let's be respectful.
They keep referencing the difficulty of setting up and putting down. At the May 9th meeting, it was offered that we can have rec staff help with setup and breakdown. In Mr. Bison's proposal, he answers the question himself in bullet point 7, saying that rec staff can help with put up and takedown. If that's the true issue. For tonight's meeting, there was on the website, if you needed help or accessibility, let the board know, they'd make it happen. What if we had a sign that said, if you need help accessing a pickleball court, call this number? It seems insane to me to spend $16,000 for a study for what's going to amount to about 10 weeks to then maybe decide not to do it. I don't know. I also have major problems with the survey. I believe it flawed in both design and functionality. It was open to non-residents. As we discussed before, there was no way to ensure that the same respondent wasn't responding 7 times or 12 times. And while 374 respondents sounds like a lot, that's a really tiny percentage of taxpayers, especially since, admittedly, some of them were not residents. And I also, Mr. Bison addressed that, so never mind. The pickleball players, I feel like, have been treated favorably by the rec for years. They've had their signs, they've paid for their Monday, Wednesday, Friday. When we've paid for court time to have Tuesday evenings reserved, there was no signage up. There was no acknowledgement. So I just feel like that's an example of the bias. Mr. Bison has mentioned that there seemed to be a waning interest in tennis programs in Kyle Littlefield's absence. I've been in touch with the Sports Barn, Great Bay Athletic Club, Newburyport Tennis Club. They all sell out all of their tennis lessons. There's a big interest in people learning tennis. Maybe just the effort hasn't been put in to grow it in Exeter. Last week, a reporter from the Wall Street Journal contacted me. He's writing a piece about the growth of pickleball and the many problems it's creating in communities over the country. Courts were recently shut down due to noise complaints in New Jersey. York, Maine was just in the news because of noise complaints. Pickleball versus tennis isn't a situation or a problem that's unique to Exeter right now. I just want our board and our town to do it right, and so that everyone in the community is well represented. There's been a lot of discussion about process. Let's not continue to make wrong moves. The right thing to do is move forward with a warrant article at the next election to build standalone pickleball courts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Good evening. My name is Pavel Pazurek. I'm Exeter resident. I live on Brookside Drive. I would like to just a little bit mention on what Nancy was saying in regard of, I used to coach under Kyle Littlefield, and before the COVID, the general idea was that we will continue. I mean, we didn't expect he will retire so soon. We were hoping to continue to run that, the whole campground and all this thing to the future. Anyway, there happened COVID, Kyle Littlefield retired, and there became a big vacuum. I did certify myself through the COVID time to be professionally certified, and I did reach towards Greg. I think you remember that. Mm-hmm. And I just didn't feel that at the time maybe was the right time. Maybe they were busy. I just didn't feel the response was right there. Maybe they were already set. Who knows? I just would like to people know that besides me professionally be trained, and I really love to train people, and I would like to coach and continue this. I was 26 years working as a residential counselor with people, disabled people. So I remember there was one lady talking about, make possibility of program people to be access on a wheels, I believe. I would like to see things like that happen, not only from pickleball points, because I know they keep doing it and they are very successful, but I would like to bring what Kyle was doing. Obviously, I cannot do it alone. I will need help with that. So we do have the people here, and it's just a question, are we going to use the resources or not? Because I believe that pickleball is definitely picking on, on popularity, but in the same time, tennis was around for a long time, and I believe it doesn't have to go anywhere. We have the people, and we can just, encourage it and make it better. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dean, we have a member of the public who has their hand up via Zoom. And I don't want to make sure that she has an opportunity to speak. Is there somebody back there that can...
I can check.
So while Mr. Dean's checking, if there's anybody else that would like to speak to this, step up to the podium.
Deborah Zollner at 48 Hampton Road in Exeter. I just want to point out a little craziness in this whole system. I don't mind playing on the lower courts. It's fine for pickleball. But we have 3 courts up above and 5 courts down below. And since pickleball's asking for 3 courts, why do they split it up? All because whoever wants the top court or the low court? It doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Step up, please.
My name is Dan Kopansky, 5 Holly Court, Exeter. First off, I wasn't here before about the net setup for pickleball, but I play both pickleball and tennis. And I have a pickleball net, and the first time I had it, it probably took me 10 to 15 minutes to figure it out. But ever since I figured out how to put it together, it takes me 4 minutes tops by myself. If there's somebody else with me, it takes 2 minutes. It's on wheels, it's very transportable, I can bring it to home, so I don't see the setup and breakdown as an issue at all, personally. What I was really going to talk about was the parking issue. Under the bullet point 8, it says Park and Recreation plans to keep 60 spaces reserved for pool and camp use. Then the next section, it says Exeter pickleball program averaged 40 to 45 people and does not present parking issues on an average day. I went to the rec field and I counted 106 parking spaces. My math is if there's 60 reserved for pool and camp and 40 to 60 people using it for pickleball, that exceeds the parking right there. Where are people going to park for Planet Playground, the tennis courts, basketball courts, soccer, baseball, softball, picnicking? This doesn't seem to be a reasonable solution. And as far as I was confused about the permanent factor, I thought I heard 230 pounds was what these permanent nets are going to be. And then there was some talk about moving them over to the side. I don't see how you can move a 230-pound racquetball net. Actually, you'd have to move 2 of them because there would be 2 on each court. That doesn't seem to be a viable solution. Right now, the current configuration is that I can play either pickleball or tennis on any court. This proposal, if it goes through, means that I have only 5 courts to play tennis on, but I could play pickleball on any of the courts. To me, that doesn't seem like a fair distribution of the courts. I'd rather have it keep the way it is so that I can play either pickleball or tennis, whatever I feel like playing. I think that's pretty much all I had. Thank you for listening.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mr. Bison, before I unmute the caller, can you just address the two things that this gentleman just brought up concerned me. One was the parking, obviously, the numbers.
Yep.
Can you just, because you're intimately familiar with the spaces.
Pickleball is done by 10 a.m., so that frees up those 40 spaces right away.
So you're not anticipating 128 cars at the same time?
No.
Okay.
And nor did we ever get 100, except on a 95-degree day, or if there's youth sports or there's softball, which now
Generally
our
in the
adult
evening?
softball has been utilizing 10 Hampton Road exclusively.
So just roughly, just for us to know, how many spots do we currently have that we
He
can
is
utilize?
correct, 109.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you. And then my understanding is that these 230-pound nets are not, they're not put there to be moved, correct? Like the whole idea is
Correct.
to keep
This is
them there?
a trial period. We want to
Understood.
put them down there, but they are movable if we need to move them.
But the idea was not to move them?
Correct.
During the trial period?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Michelle, I see your hand up, and I'm going to try to unmute you if you just please be...
I'm unmuted.
Oh, perfect, thank you. If you could state your full name and address for the record.
Michelle Clock, 68 Park Street, Exeter, New Hampshire. Thank you for unmuting me and letting me speak. I want to thank Greg Bisson, and I want to thank everybody for your efforts in putting this into making pickleball available to everybody in Exeter and making it available at the recreation center where people can go and do other things, like they can go to Planet Playground or be at the pool and be with your community, because I think it's so important that everybody play together in your community. And I'm so appreciative that we're trying, setting up the net on the fence, and yes, does it have some problems, but people are kind, and every time I go to play, I can't set up a net. I physically can't do it. I have a disability. My daughter has a disability, and we physically can't do it. People have offered to help set up nets for us, but that means we can't go when there's nobody else there. Sometimes I brought the net out and it does come apart. It just takes me a minute to put it back together. My concern about the pickleball trying a semi-permanent solution is the visibility of the lines. I can't see the lines, and so I still wouldn't be able to play independently. I know I'm not the only one that can't see the lines, and that's a problem too. But again, I just want to thank the community and thank for thinking of all people, including people with different abilities, because tennis and pickleball can both be accommodated in many different ways, whether you're able-bodied or you have a disability, and I think that's something that we really need to do, no matter what we do for a permanent solution, is to look at universal design and how we can accommodate everybody in our sports. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay. Any other members of the public? Sir? Step right up. Jay,
Don Cloutier on Prentice Way in Exeter. Very much appreciate the effort and work that Greg has gone through for, let's say, the recreation in Exeter. And pickleball over the last few years has become very popular, and we obviously tried to bring before the board a opportunity to change the courts to permanent, which didn't seem to work out. And I appreciate that Greg is trying to find an alternative with these semi-permanent, but I guess I'm not really in favor of spending that much money. One, two, maybe two of them, but I'm not really in favor of spending it all, because it clutters up for the tennis players, frankly, though I always question how popular that is compared to the pickleball. But regardless, we should have availability of both. But I know by putting in the ramp, making the gate bigger so that you can get through with so it becomes ADA accessible, and maybe even widening the path so it's not difficult to get down there. That's a great step forward. And if there were one or two of these semi-permanent, I think it would be enough. We all got the call from the Wall Street Journal, New York Times, whatever he was, and it should be an interesting article. But anyway, so thank you very much, Greg, and I love the support and everything, but yes, it's kind of a pain in the neck to set up the nets. I completely agree. If I've done it once, I've done it 1,000 times, and I can set up 16 nets in a half an hour. Truly. But do I want to do that? No. Anyway, that's how I feel about it. I don't see that there's a great big gain by us spending that money.
So that I understand, when you say one or two, you're talking one or two
of
courts
these,
rather than three.
We have one temporary net now that we put up against the fence, and we've circulated amongst all of the people that play that to always leave it there. In other words, unless we have Monday, Wednesday, Friday, yes, you can use it then. But otherwise, if you choose to go on a Wednesday night or a Friday afternoon, don't use that net. Go get one out of the box, and away you go. And yeah, it is a pain in the neck, but I don't know, splitting, I just not crazy about splitting it up like that. I don't think it's the best solution. Of course, I would love to see us put another 8 behind the 5, but maybe next year. Anyway, that's my opinion.
Thank you. I appreciate your thoughts. Jay?
Hello, Jay Childs, 7 Hunter Place in Exeter. And it is great to see that the survey, at least for whatever it is, reveals that there is an active pickleball and tennis community in here, despite the fact that we've been kind of having to hear over and over again that few or nobody plays tennis in Exeter anymore. And that's simply not true, but thank you for that. Let me quickly start by saying that I understand that there's many pressing issues in Exeter, and the board would certainly welcome more engagement on those issues. I see that. The fact that the Wall Street Journal is calling is frankly hilarious in some ways. But I do believe beyond the tennis and pickleball, there is this issue of following rules and actively engaging the public in potential changes to public facilities early in the process so we can work together to find a solution, not having it sprung in April or May. I'm curious if the main goal, and they're still going to happen, expressed by the club is partially about recreational opportunities for pickleball without it being so difficult, but it's really about tournaments. And as they've said in their own minutes of the Rec Advisory Board meeting, have as many tournaments as possible. And in order to really do that professionally, you would need to have 12 permanent courts. So if the plan moving forward for now is to have 3 courts dedicated temporarily, permanently, full-time for pickleball, what does that mean going forward? Because, like I said, there still is a very active tennis community in this town, in this nation. There's according to the pickleballplayer.com, there's 22 million tennis players in the country, 4.8 million pickleball players, okay? That's a lot for both. That's fine. That's on their site. So I'm not sure if, like, the original plan to convert courts was never really voted on. Has that actually been set aside, or where? I'm curious where that stands. And if it is indeed going to be 3 courts, while most of the public was unaware that there was this problem sharing courts until now, the new proposed plan would take 3 now shared pickleball courts, tennis and pickleball courts, and outfit them to be 6, I think, dedicated pickleball courts, or if it was 2, there would be 4. 8, okay. If that occurs, that will reduce tennis capacity by 37%. So while we're trying to meet the needs of everybody at that facility, the compromise still takes away about 1/3 of the capacity for tennis, which is used in this community. It will not add any pickleball capacity. I understand that it'll make it a little bit easier, but it won't add any capacity. It'll just make them exclusive for that use. I would say that if the board agrees to this temporary plan with 3, maybe 2 seems like more reasonable if that's the way it has to go. Then, other than, I guess, tournaments, the 5 remaining courts should be dedicated for tennis use only, to minimize the waiting time for the courts during the predictable time of busy use. How the remaining courts will be used is not really currently outlined in this proposal, if it is to go forward. So finally, I've spoken to pickleball players. I don't know if they're affiliated with a club or not, who have had no issue with the current arrangement of sharing all of the courts. So again, I would say before we do anything drastic or change anything, let's pause and think this through thoroughly before assuming that the club speaks for the entirety of the Exeter pickleball community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Everybody's welcome to speak.
Kevin Keaveney, 14 Exeter Farms Road. It's a good discussion we've had. Dawn, thanks for your comments coming from the pickleball community. I do feel that there seems to be, with your comments, more discussion maybe on what is the, like, looking at down the road, getting what you guys want. I love pickleball, I love tennis. I just will not in favor of repurposing one for another. In terms of my own use, family use with the tennis courts this season, I've had at least 2 or 3 times now where all 8 courts were being used for tennis. So this arrangement we've had in place has worked well. Pickleball gets some really good hours to play pickleball. They get the top courts. I think they like to play up at the top courts, and to move down to the bottom, I'm sure it's not ideal for anybody. But if there is more time here, which is what, Greg, thanks for your work, to come to some better options here, whether it's the YMCA or, having to put 1 or 2 down on the bottom just to allow some type of semi-permanent structure, I can see where you're coming from on that as well as an option. But when I go up there, I see how the pickleball community is a tight-knit group. They play at those certain hours, they have a good time. And I just feel that if the pickleball group was to get together with what we've all discussed, how many would actually prefer to keep things the way they are? So hopefully we can keep this discussion going forward. But as of tonight, I wouldn't want to see 3 courts being pulled away. Okay. Now, if the prize money for the tournaments is high enough, I'm thinking about playing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Before we bring it back to the board. Ma'am?
Hi, good evening. Arlene Child, 7 Hunter Place. And I think this meeting's going far better than the last time I was here. I like to see positive interaction. I'm a nurse. I'm all about compassion and thinking of others. And I don't like animosity, etc. But that's just my personality. And then I just want to answer the question about the upper courts primarily. Why we like to play tennis on the upper courts. We like to play tennis on the upper courts. We like to be near the playground. We like to have kids coming, asking for balls. There were some people within our community that were concerned about any sort of dark wind nets going up and being unable to see to the playground, see to the pool. The obstruction, I guess, was one of the big concerns.
Windproof barriers.
On the what?
Windproof barriers.
Oh, the windproof barriers. Thank you, Pavel. But I just don't feel like I need to give an explanation why I like to play on the upper courts. I do. The lower courts, they get far more debris. There's far more light changes when you're playing tennis. That's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Sir?
Don Cludier, Prentice Way again. We'll take the bottom courts, absolutely, no problem. We don't care. As a matter of fact, with a little bit of, we actually, of late, have been taking an additional 2 to 4 on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, in addition to the 6 that we have on the top. But I can circulate to have, if people are going to go at off times, to use the bottom court. I really don't, isn't it? But I would like to clarify one thing. In the due process by which, as a group, we raised funds in order to make the upper courts permanent. We absolutely did what we believed and were led to believe was the correct way to do it. I look at you as the ones that should have told us back in December, you're doing it wrong. You can't do this. We would have never gone through the fundraising. We wouldn't have bothered. We had another 15,000 on top of the 35 that was committed to that we canned once we finally realized. And I just, the people that found out in tennis about pickleball, I personally probably went up to a couple dozen people and told them. I wasn't trying to hide anything. And I really resented the point that we were doing something underhanded or sneaky. Anyway, that's my 6 cents. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Greg.
This proposal, you could modify it to 2, honestly. Yeah, it's still, it's a less nugget out of the tennis, but we could still provide some windscreens and separation barriers. So whatever the board feels is the right way to go, I 100% support that.
So before I know, Mr. Childs, just put your hand up. Michelle also has her hand up. Is there anybody that has not spoken yet that would like to speak? Because I really want everybody to have an opportunity to speak once if they'd like. All right, Mr. Chair, let's let Michelle go and then you. Jay, hold on one sec.
J. Childs, 700 Place.
I was just going to let Michelle go, and then you. I'm sorry. Sorry. I got two audiences here, two sets of hands, Jay. I'm doing my best. Michelle, can you hear us?
Hi, Michelle Clark, Park Street, Exeter. I just wanted to add, I wouldn't mind using the lower courts, and I actually am kind of excited to be in the shade a little bit and try them out once it's accessible. But right now, the upper courts are the courts that are accessible to me and my friends that use wheelchairs and my daughter. And it's my daughter and I that I like to do it. We have an established accommodative, group of people that need accommodations playing pickleball currently. And that's what I'd like to see be able to keep going. And I just want to keep, pounding that in, that everybody deserves to play. And we can make this happen, and including wheelchair users and people with different abilities. And we have an established program and a group of people that are interested in continuing to play outside in the sun, getting exercise, what everybody wants to do. And I'm so glad that the lower courts are going to be accessible. Then we still have the net pro, but I'm so glad that Greg is working so hard to make the best accommodations he can for all abilities. And I just wanted to say that again. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. My apologies. J. Childs, 7 Hunter Place. I just want to say, knowing now what I've heard, I am more than willing and happy to understand that the process you were following was the process that you thought was the way it needed to go. That probably falls more on Exeter Park and Rec then, that we still found out about it for the first time in April, when Mr. Cloutier informed some people about what was going to happen beginning in May. But I absolutely will take them that they weren't aware that the process was not what they were led to believe. If in turn, you will accept that there is a vibrant, active tennis community along with the pickleball community, and that there are not very few occasional people playing tennis. I'll grant you that if you grant us this, and we'll figure out a way to make it work.
You can broker that deal outside of the meeting. Ma'am?
Ann Cloutier, Prentice Way, Exeter. And I go down and visit you guys when you're playing. Dawn and I have been very involved with adaptive pickleball through the Y for several years, and that's how I met Michelle. I have so many requests weekly from different organizations. We did it through Northeast Passage, but I've also just heard from Krempels in Portsmouth, which are people with brain injuries who also want to come and play with us. Michelle, of course, is sight impaired. Her daughter is in a wheelchair. And there may be some people from Northeast Passage that want to come play with us. We have volunteers to help, and we were thinking that on Wednesday night, which is a real low time, which is during the times that we play from 6 to 8, we would have probably 2 courts where we would be able to play with these people, because there's no place in the state they can play. So I just wanted to let you know that this is a very strong possibility, and you can see Michelle is very excited about it. And we've played with Michelle a lot. She just comes and plays with us. And so I just wanted you to be aware that we will be having some of the people from Krempels, possibly some of the people from Northeast Passage, if they can get their wheelchairs. And we would have to use the upper courts at this time for those, 2 courts, because we can't get them down there yet. So that's it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, before I bring it back to the board, any other public comment? Okay. I'm going to save my opinion for last, but before we deliberate, I just want to kind of back up to why are we here? At our last meeting in March, at our last select board meeting in March, Mr. Bisson came forward like he normally does throughout the course of the year with a permit or approval for the select board to consider. This one was not to expend money, as is usually the case with Mr. Bisson, but it was to accept a donation. And at the time, we all talked about, how generous a donation it was, how it was pretty impressive how much money was raised in a short amount of time. However, it was the first time that the select board was hearing about a complete makeover of the tennis courts, or part of the tennis courts. Now, the select board, prior select boards, rather, have accepted extremely generous donations from soccer leagues, from softball leagues. And they've accepted those donations in the spirit of improving existing fields for existing play. I believe that the concern we had and the reason that we wanted to pause was that this donation was to not improve on the tennis courts, but to make over the tennis courts or make it into something other than being able to play tennis. So that's why we're here. That's why we were here on May 9th. I learned a lot about pickleball. I've never played pickleball. My best friend plays pickleball. He lives in Rye, and you probably know him, and he plays at the 6 or 7 locations in the Seacoast area, and he has a great time. And I'm happy for him. And I know in Rye, he's got a very beautiful place to play. So, but I learned a lot about pickleball. I learned about why pickleball is important. I learned about your community. And I learned about the continued vibrancy of tennis. And I have been walking down to the rec courts, different parts of the days, different weeks since we've had this conversation. And you know what? People are playing tennis, and you're all playing pickleball. And it's great to see everybody out getting exercise. But why we're here discussing this now is we had a request to accept a donation to completely make over 3 tennis courts. I believe that in the conversation that the board had, we didn't take a formal vote, but it seemed that the conversation stemmed that we wanted to look at alternatives before doing something permanent that would take away permanently 3 tennis courts, leaving the town really with 5 tennis courts. So this evening, Mr. Bisson, at our request, did his homework. He eliminated places in town that we cannot build pickleball courts. He told us how much it's going to cost to build a pickleball court, providing we have property. And he came up with a solution that he's recommending to expand, and I heard both sides, right? So to me, when I read the packet this weekend, it looked like a good idea that pickleball now has an exclusive 3 courts on which they can play Sunday through Saturday when the park is open. It sounded pretty good to me, but now I'm hearing from some of you that it'd be okay keeping it the way it is. Mr. Cloutier brought up a good point. If you only need 2, why are we building 3? I mean, we have the money in this fund. This is what this fund is for. But if we don't need 3, we certainly don't have to pay for 3. Or we don't have to do anything at all. And we can keep things the way they are because everybody's working together. And we can continue to look at alternate sites that we could build permanent pickleball courts, because if it's as popular as it seems to be getting, and what I'm reading about, then, maybe that's a good investment. So that's why we're here. The process part, again, the select board did not know about this until the end of March. Somehow there was a communication breakdown. And I trust, Mr. Cloutier, that everything you said was true, that you were led to believe that what you were doing was the right way to go. And when it came before the board in March, that was one of the reasons why we said, wait a minute. So, where that breakdown was, we have to address that internally, whether it was staff, whether it was a committee, whether it was both. But certainly, the process that you thought, or your group thought, was the right manner in which to proceed was not. So with that, I'll open it up to the board. Selectwoman Cowan.
I've thought a lot about this. I've talked with a lot of people about this. I do think that there are interesting problems that are coming up in a variety of communities. I was joking with a colleague who regularly donates a lot of money and does a lot of hard work in his life. And he said the hardest thing was putting in pickleball courts at his mother's retirement facility. Like, that was the hardest thing that he's undertaken. So I think that this is not something that we're the only community struggling with. And I take that to heart because it does feel a little silly, right? Like, we're all spending so much energy, so much time, there's so much passion for something like this. And the thing that I'm struck by is that this compromise is not seeming to make anybody happy, which means it's maybe the right thing to do. Because if the pickleball people were like, yes, we've got you, then like I would think, well, what about the tennis players? And if the tennis players were like, yes, this is perfect, I would think, well, something's missing for the pickleball team. And I think that, I don't want to lose the concerns that we heard from people who are not present in this room, right? We did hear from a lot of people who said they struggle, putting up and taking down the nets. We heard from people who said there isn't, the pickleball players aren't sharing. We heard from people who said, the tennis courts are often free or not being played on. And I think that this compromise lets us do some really good work to make sure that we're making the best decisions for our town. I think it gives a dedicated space, which is clearly what the pickleball folks wanted by funding this project. And I also understand not every pickleball player is being represented by this group. And I also understand we can't just take something away permanently that's always been there. And so I'm not ready to say, all right, let's tear everything out, let's convert this. And I'm also not immune to the fact that there are good courts and bad courts. Now, I don't play either of these sports. I never have. My grandfather tried. He was a tennis pro. He tried to get me to play. I am not coordinated in this. But I believe you that there are these tennis courts that are, or courts that are preferable and courts that are not preferable. So I'm not in favor of changing something that is clearly the preferred thing, but I do think we need to make changes so that it is not bad to play on the lower courts. And I think we have to do that anyway, regardless of who is playing on them at what time. Now, I am fine purchasing these semi-permanent pieces of equipment because it sounds to me like pickleball is growing and there is going to be more of a demand, and we are probably at some point going to have to invest or partner or something to make a more permanent solution here. The other thing that I'm hearing is that we have talented tennis talent. That was a clunky sentence, but go with me. That we really need to, work and invest. And if there are towns who are totally filling up a roster of a tennis pro or a tennis teacher, we need to take advantage of that. We need to offer those things. So it could be that my vote is going to be to use this season to invest the money in equipment that we will use regardless of what it looks like down the road. Either we will build permanent pickleball courts so that there's no, good courts or bad courts, they're all just good courts, right? Or we're gonna keep it like this because it works so well, or we're gonna take everything down and but I think that this is a really good investment. And I also think that we need to invest in the tennis culture in our town. And if there used to be a tennis pro or a tennis teacher, we need to investigate that, and we need to make sure that that happens. Similarly, I'm not discounting the, quite a few people who came and spoke passionately about not being able to put up pickleball courts. And just because one person says that they can do it in 3 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever, it doesn't mean everybody can do that. And so I am very much in support of a situation or solution that lets people play in the manner that is the best for them. So I am going to support this motion. I hope you'll join me. I certainly have learned a lot from this process. I think the town has learned a lot in terms of structure and procedure, and I don't think that we're going to make this kind of mistake again. So thank you for that work. Thank everybody for coming out, and I'm going to vote to support this.
Thank you. Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf.
I'll try to make this brief. I'm impressed with the portable temporary nets.
Structure and procedure.
Oh, hey, we're listening to ourselves. Okay. I think 6 is a bit much to start with. I like the idea of maybe having 2 because that solves the issue of not being able to put up nets quickly when people need them. I'm in favor, to be honest with you, of keeping the temporary, if we do the 2 nets up at the upper courts, so it's right near the entryway, so that immediately people with ADA issues can access those courts, and that's what we do perhaps for just this summer. So we're not investing almost $20,000 in something that may or may not be where we want to go, because if in the next year, while we actually do some more footwork and location scouting and fundraising, maybe there is a place in town that we haven't really invested, real time in to see, talking to the YMCA, they've got that parking lot where that pool was supposed to go, but we all know that pool's not gonna happen. So, possibly that's also part of what, so I feel, I'm happy that we have this option. I'm just not happy with 6. I think if we did the first court, have 2, and then we still have the temporary nets that are used for the other courts, we can solve the issues that we're talking about right now and look further at how do we have this be a permanent thing when we really have all of the answers to the questions that we need answered. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's it.
I want to ask Mr. Bisson, though, we just approved, the select board over the last couple of meetings, some ramps and other things to make the lower courts ADA accessible. To Selectwoman Roundtree Olaf's point, will those be in place by the time these proposed?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The ramp has been ordered. The check has been mailed for the deposit. Unfortunately, the company we used does not accept POs, so we had to mail 50%. And then, once the fence company is ready to go when we tell them.
So regardless of what the 5 courts below are used for, tennis or pickleball, there will be ADA accessibility. Correct. By sometime this summer?
By the end of July.
Okay, yep. Thanks.
But will that be the access road to it? Because the stairs are.
It's steep.
Yeah.
But is that going to lead all the way down? Because that road is not great.
Greg, you want to describe that real quick?
Yeah, the path is actually 54 inches wide, so it meets ADA, and the slope to run is actually, they measured it and it meets code. It's supposed to be 1 for every 12. Mm-hmm. So it looks steep because it's a very long run.
Yeah.
So, but it is ADA compliant. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
But then it would be great to have both the upper and lower courts, accessible, and it's also not that far to, if you're in a wheelchair, to go all the way down there.
Thank you. Selectwoman Gilman.
Well, thank you all for your eloquence and your passion. I agree in part with Selectwoman Cowan's observation that if nobody's completely happy, then that's the solution for now. And that I just have to agree with that. It's been stated here that the equipment that we're ordering or will vote on ordering will not be unused. Whatever our solution is in the end for permanent pickleball courts, those nets, et cetera, will be used. So I don't have a problem with that part of it. The only thing that I would ask for recommendation from all of you is the number of courts that we're going to use. And I want to know, when we say 2 and 4, are you talking about tennis courts or the number of pickleball courts?
It's good to be clear.
Yeah. But I think that would be my recommendation. I think both Selectwoman Cowan and Selectwoman Rantriolo have made good points and will help me make a decision.
So just to clarify, so my recommendation was for that first court that's immediately off of the parking lot next to where the gate is, would be 2 pickleball courts, 1 tennis court with the mobile units, because then you have the other gate entryway so people can enter to play tennis if they're not being used for pickleball on the other side. So then you don't have that people crossing paths, people getting in the way of each other, you're not having to worry so much about that. And it still leaves the option open for, if it's during the pickleball time frame, they can still set up the temporary nets with the 2 semi-permanent ones and still have access. But that gives us time to really solve the bigger issue, which is space for tennis players and space for pickleballers, because everyone wants more space. So I just think then we're not rushing into purchasing $20,000 worth of stuff.
I'm sorry, can you explain that again?
So basically what I'm proposing, instead of saying that we're gonna buy 6 of these semi-permanent nets, we'd purchase 2. The first court that's immediately off of when you enter closest to Planet Playground in the parking lot. Because I think if we're talking about ADA accessibility, I think it makes the most sense to have the closest court to the parking lot be the one that we're thinking about accessible for people in wheelchairs. Yes, the ramp will be accessible in the future, but let's be realistic. Like if you're really thinking about what's accessible, yes, it's great to have the ramp there, but I think it makes the most sense to have it be the shortest distance from the parking lot to the courts. So that's, I think, just being fair and logical. And then I think because the gate is on the other side, you can enter to play tennis still without walking across people who are playing pickleball. Because then you just continue down and then you take the left into the gate. So I'm just trying to think about how do we make everyone a little bit happier while we still figure out how do we make everyone happiest.
Yeah, especially if the board is inclined, we could pick up pickleball up top too, and then instead of moving them down.
I'm gonna let you figure that out.
Because if you set them up on the upper courts, then you don't want to pick up pickleball down there, because now you've taken away more tennis courts, if that makes sense.
No.
No, now you lost me.
Yeah, right.
And there's a lockbox that might have to be moved to the lower deck.
Yeah. But if there's 2 semi-permanent ones up top and we pick up pickleball down below.
No, I think, if I'm understanding everyone correctly, if we keep the hours, from what I understood, everyone was happy enough that we had the set hours for pickleball using it during certain times of the day that we've all gotten along with for the last couple of years. So you maintain those. The only things that stay permanent are the semi-permanent on court 1. The temporary nets get moved away during the non-pickleball designated timeframes. Then they become tennis courts for anybody who wants, or they become, first come, first serve. Haha. And then we still have the 5 lower courts with the adjustments that are discussed for trimming the trees, the, squeegee, brooms, all of that. So we're not losing 3 courts. We work on 1 court for the year that's like, okay, we've lost 1 tennis court, but now we have the issues that people seem to be talking about.
Whatever the board, and it seems the pickleballers and the tennis.
Is that okay?
Essentially status quo with a 2 permanent, semi-permanent.
Right, and then, you can pop in, play, and...
So instead of 3,
you buy 2 now.
3 of these, you're buying 2, and instead of 3 at the bottom or 2 at the bottom, you're using the first 2 in the top.
Court 1.
Court 1.
Becomes court 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1 court, 2 court for pickleball. And those just don't move for the next year.
No, they could.
They could.
Right.
Hypothetically speaking.
Yes.
I mean, whatever.
I just want to make sure I was understanding the number of courts.
Yeah.
So one at top for pickleball, 2 for tennis.
Yes.
We're talking about one tennis court that now becomes 2 pickleball courts.
Right, so one court is going to be used for pickleball.
One tennis court is going to be used for
and 2 tennis
pickleball.
courts for 2 tennis courts.
I want to draw a picture.
I know.
Well, it's good that we all understand.
We're only
it, though,
buying
so let's
2
make sure
pickleball
we
nets.
all- Because I'm not following this either, so that's.
We're only buying 2 pickleball nets.
Right, so one tennis court is 2 pickleball courts.
And it's the first courts because it's closest.
The tennis net is what divides the 2 pickleball courts.
Yeah.
So where she wants to put them is when you first get there, you walk in, right there.
The first court would be into
For the-
2
for the
pickleball courts.
Well, they're
And that-
permanent, so
and that-
any of the.
That would change the total for the board to $77,572.61.
Could you repeat that, Greg?
$7,572.61.
You don't need fencing. You don't need fencing.
Well, the
And I don't
separated.
think we need, I mean, I don't think for that you need fencing.
Okay.
It's a good compromise.
So
It addresses ADA easy.
Easy for them to
Takes one tennis court.
Right.
Also the bathrooms.
Right. Everything is close and you still have people able to access tennis courts without getting in the way of people playing pickleball.
But then you'd have an issue with adaptive tennis players. They'd have to go through the pickleball court, right?
But if what we're doing is, and maybe, sorry. So maybe Greg can answer this. If it's still adaptive tennis, if they can still access the court, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Through the first net. I'm just saying for the majority of time, if people are playing pickleball on that first court, tennis players will just walk the extra 30 feet, I don't know, to get through the next gate, and they'd still have seven courts.
Yeah. So getting rid of the fencing, the new total would be $5,300.
Look at that.
$348. $5,348.
Money.
Take care of my brother.
Okay.
But still the aluminum ramp.
The aluminum ramp, that's already been approved.
That's
Yeah.
definitely coming,
Yeah.
So Selectwoman Gilman, did you have anything else?
No,
Go to
no, I think we've
Selectwoman
heard some
Belanger?
really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I think, just so, yes, we repeat sometimes, and it might be annoying to some people, but we really want to make sure that every one of us is following along and everyone at home. So bear with us. Thank you. So I am liking the 2 for right now. We'll see how the summer works out. I think it's a great compromise, and will also allow us to see what Y is going to offer for public-private
Partnership.
right? So I think the 2, I think this is a win-win right now for the summer. So thank you for all the work, for everyone coming out, having this discussion. It's really helpful. We'll have ADA accessible for both front and back. We're making progress. Okay, thank you.
So we have two proposals, Selectwoman Cowan and Selectwoman Roundtree-Olaf. So at this point, I would entertain a
I
motion.
vote Levy makes her motion.
Oh, I got to reword that? Okay. I know. So I propose, oh, my word, that the town converts the top, can I just call it Court 1? Is everyone okay with that? Converts temporarily Court 1 to place two semi-permanent pickleball nets that will be used full-time for pickleball. So make it very clear that they're not going to be slid around by individuals. And then all the other pieces of Greg's proposal, like, do I have to go through and read all of those as well?
Well, it has to be a formal motion, yeah, with the amount of money.
So what's the final amount, Greg? It's $5,348. $5,348, any cents? Okay. To cost the town $5,348 to also make the pathway ADA accessible for both the lower and upper courts? No, that's it all? That's already done, so scratch that.
So it's just the equipment.
Just the equipment, 2 pickleball nets.
And windscreens.
And windscreens. Do we need to know how many windscreens?
It's, I can do the math, sorry.
That's okay. We can just do windscreens.
Windscreens, it's
Windscreens.
approximately 180 square feet, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we need them? Don't you already have?
The windscreens are going to be used for the lower courts, I think, as well, to help with debris and wind.
Debris coming in, so.
Got it, thank you.
Yep.
I crossed all the other stuff out, so thank you for that.
That was really a horrible motion.
I think we got it.
Yeah, you got the gist, though.
I second.
Right.
Okay.
Joanna, did you get all of them? Okay.
Joanna's
Good.
Joanna works
Joanna, you're
magic.
great.
So we have a motion, is there, and we have a second?
Yes.
Any discussion?
Question.
Oh,
I just have one question.
I'm sorry, we have a motion and a second, we can't take,
We're in the voting mode.
I came in tonight thinking that keeping it status quo while we continue doing some investigative work was the best way to go. I think you made a good point. In the art of negotiation, nobody walks away with everything that they want, and there's got to be compromise, but it has to be a good deal for both sides. We heard from somebody this evening who stated that they're actually going to require a mechanism by which to get down to the lower courts. And both times she spoke, she seemed pretty excited to be able to play down there. So I know that's only one individual that may require assistance, but she was the only person tonight that stated that she required assistance, and she was really excited to hear that there were going to be 2 to 3 courts at the bottom. I think the motion on the table is a good compromise. I think it tries to be inclusive. Coming in here, being the person that wanted to keep things status quo, I was really sold on Greg's proposal after hearing Michelle speak, and I was really inclined to vote for 2 courts after hearing Mr. Cloutier, because he made a good point. If you only need 2, why are we getting 3? I still truly believe that the bottom 2 courts is the place to start for this. I respect the spirit of the motion. I respect my colleagues' opinion. I respect all your opinions. But because of those reasons, I will vote nay, because I still think that the bottom 2 are the place to start. So with that, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay. Passes 4-1. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight and giving us your input.
Thank you.
We're here every other Monday night.
And deliberative session is the first Saturday in February.
It was so sad. Yes, I was gonna say, budget season starts. I mean, he volunteers.
Hi, it's good to see you.
I know they work hard.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Thank you all very much for listening to us.
Thank you.
For something that's
Nope, that's what we're here for. Thank you. Application?
Okay. Regular business, we do not have any tax abatements, credits, or exemptions. Selectwoman Gilman, you
I'm off
got
for
off
tonight.
between the proclamation and the...
Yeah. I had I in it, so.
Nor do we have any permits and approvals, so Mr. Dean, we can go right into your town manager report.
Yes, just a couple of things. One is that we had a successful bond issue. As you know, we went to market for 10 Hampton Road and the groundwater exploration project, and the bonds came in at 2.63%, which is a little bit higher than recent years. So that shows you that the interest rates are creeping up. The town offices will be closed June 20th for the observation of Juneteenth. That is coming up next Monday, and the holiday is actually on a Sunday, which means that for the town it would fall on the Monday. And then I also wanted to just report to the board briefly that Pam and I met with Patty Frew Waters over at Seacoast Family Promise, had a nice tour of the facility, and they're looking to do some more expansive housing and working on that, so we'll have a good partnership there. And that was all I had.
I had a couple questions for you. The first was, do you have an update on any of the congressional spending or the projects that Melissa and Jennifer worked on?
Yeah, I do not have an update for you, but I will get that for you.
Okay. And DPW, do we still have all of the openings that we had, or have we been able to fill any of those? Or
we still have all the openings that we've had.
Okay,
So.
all right. Trying to think some of the other warrant articles we were working on. We'll discuss it later in correspondence, but there were several emails regarding parking, and I think Selectwoman Belanger brought that up. I'd like to get that, as well as the ADA report, on the next agenda if we can.
Okay, will do.
And I think that's all the questions. Any other questions for Mr. Dean? Okay. Select Board Committee reports. Selectwoman Belanger.
I have one.
Great.
Housing Advisory Committee, we met on last Friday, the 10th of June. We had Mark Connors, the town planner from Stratham, come to speak to us, but that was going to be on tonight's agenda, so I won't go into that conversation. We'll wait until that gets back on our agenda. Mr. Sharples, our town planner, has met with Horsley Witten. He's had 2 meetings. David's been working on a new zone draft for density purposes for housing, and so that's still in the works. He's looking for some funding, but we think we might have found some during the meeting, so that's a plus. I'll update if that works out. Rockingham Planning Commission is doing the follow-up to the Housing Advisory Committee Forum. They're going to have 2 listening sessions, and you all should get invites to that, so please keep an eye out for that. And we're planning in September to unveil finally our storyboard project that we did pre-COVID, and to do a walk around town to show. So we'll start with showing the storyboard map, and then we'll do a walking tour of the actual places so people can see options for multi-family housing.
Great. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Selectwoman Gilman.
Yes, I had just one meeting, the facilities, facilities advisory committee, thank you. We went over the returns of the RFPs for the facilities assessment program. They were quite a bit over the amount of money that was approved at the town meeting. And they were also all businesses that were not from New Hampshire or really close to Exeter. There was one main company, but one was from Florida, one was, Midwest. Really didn't think that was a good idea. The other thing is that we had approved the purchase of 10 Hampton Road between the time we wrote the RFP and then got the responses to it. So that added or could add to the overall project scope. So there was a discussion about not just that building, but whether the responses that we had were so wide might be because of the scope of work that we described, and maybe we need to narrow it down to, for me, I thought it was an unfortunate outcome that instead of looking out at all our properties, perhaps we need to look at the ones that are most critically used, like this building and town hall that, are out there for most of the public to be using. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to change the scope, re-invite an RFP, and hopefully get more we found a couple of local or more local companies that will do the work. So you'll be hearing more about that as it goes through. And then I just have a few state things. I just want to fill you in on the vetoes. Probably already heard about them. All the ones requiring facial or prohibiting facial coverings in schools have passed. No, requiring them prohibited. He vetoed, I'm sorry. In schools. And then I'm not looking at the right map, but. And the bill about having the safety zone around women's health businesses, he vetoed that, so it remains the same as it has been for years. There's one that would require UNH and other public colleges in New Hampshire, in order to graduate, you must be able to pass United States Citizenship and Immigration Services naturalization test. There was a similar one last year that didn't fly because it required people to answer and get right all 100 questions, whereas when you're being naturalized, you really only answer 20 or so questions. So we thought that was a little unfair, and we also put in a civics requirement last year, so the governor thought this was a little bit more than necessary. There are about 50 or more bills that he has signed into law. A lot of one is regarding the power of the governor during a state of emergency. Mm-hmm. There were two of those bills, and one he vetoed and one he went along with. They were very, very different. But the one he vetoed would have the legislature weigh in on states of emergency, if they're going to be expanded or not, and to get 400 people together in an emergency, I thought was a little over the top. So did he. And that's all I'm going to say about state things. We're in the holding pattern while the governor goes through all the bills.
Okay, thank you very much. Selectwoman Cowan.
I don't have any meetings to report.
Okay, thank you, Selectwoman Montriola.
Didn't have any meetings the last, started 13th.
The Sustainability Advisory Committee met a week ago Tuesday at the last minute. I was unable to attend, however, they did not have a quorum, so even though they chatted for 45 minutes, they didn't take up anything to vote on. And they have decided not to meet in July and August, so their next meeting will be in September. And that's all I had. River Advisory is on Thursday. So correspondence, we received our annual assessment schedule from both the Exeter Region Co-op School District as well as the Exeter School District. We received correspondence from the owner of Buxton Water proposing an alternate truck route. Mr. Dean, has staff reached out to Donna?
Not yet. This is something that we will do this week, reach out to her. We need to have both the police department and Public Works Department review this, so we want to wait till they go through their review before we make any recommendation on it.
Okay. Could you update the board once that's done?
Yes.
Because I don't know if Donna's reached out to any of you. She's reached out to me to meet. So if you could just give me an update when you have that. Notice from Xfinity. We also had copied of a letter to Mr. Dean from a citizen in Exeter regarding public safety. Again, I referred to several piece of correspondence we received on parking, and Mr. Dean will get that on the next agenda. We received copy of a notice to a property owner in Exeter for alleged violation from DES. Mr. Dean, does the town have any obligation to look into this, or is this courtesy?
So whenever we get these, we give them to Kristen Murphy, and she does the follow-up to ensure that the order's being adhered to.
Wonderful. Okay. DOT gave us a notice of a sale of state-owned land in Exeter, which is on 1 Cronin Road.
Funny that should come up right now. It means we have the first option on it.
Mr. Dean, any appetite there?
So far, we've talked to Economic Development about this and also the Planning Office, and neither one expressed any interest in it.
Okay.
It's a rather slopey area, if I remember it correctly. Not really much that we would be able to use it for, but we need to take a look, I think.
Mr. Dean, could we get a memo then from Mr. Wyndham or Mr. Sharples addressing that?
Sure.
That'd be great. A letter from the Department of Revenue with the 2021 Cyclical Monitoring Report. We have notice from Exeter Farms Homeowners Association with their new Board of Directors, 2022 to 2023. And that's it for correspondence. Reviewing board calendars. We were going to all talk about that. We have our next meeting is June 27th, and if we were to line up July as normal, it would be July 11th and the 25th.
I'm going to actually be on a flight on the 27th during that time, so I won't be.
On June? Okay. What about any conflicts on July 11th or the 25th?
I have a conflict on the 11th.
Okay. Anybody else?
Sadly, my Monday nights are free.
Yeah, I'm on vacation the week of the 11th.
Okay, so,
I drifted off for a minute there
That's
because
okay.
I don't want to forget something.
Could we do, Mr. Dean, could we do July 18th and the 25th back to back?
We could.
Will that work for everybody?
I already have it July 8th. Yeah.
Okay. And then are there any August conflicts?
Oh, yeah, hold on.
Russ, what are the 2 Mondays you have in August?
Sorry?
August. So if we go July 18th, 25th, 2 weeks from the 25th would be...
The Mondays in August are the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, the 29th.
So if we keep the 2 week, every other week, August 8th and August 22nd?
August 8th is fine, the 22nd. I'm not 100% sure yet.
Yep, I'm getting there, sorry. Trying to.
It's okay.
Okay, August 8th. And the 22nd. I'm fine for either one.
All right, so we go, unfortunately, we have to do June 27th because we have the holiday
Oh, that's
on the
fine.
20th. So we'll go June 27th, the July 18th and the 25th, all 5 of us are here. August 8th, all 5 of us are here. Let's pencil in 8/22 and Selectwoman Roundtree.
I will say no. Actually, I'm just looking at it right now, and I don't think that I will be here.
All right, let's revisit that date
Okay.
as we get closer.
So 18th.
Because we could do the 8th and the 15th, right?
The problem, and I would do that, except the problem is that Labor Day throws a wrinkle in that, and that's like 3 or 4 weeks we don't meet.
Yeah.
I mean, the 29th, that's the first day of school. Everybody's going to be. Well,
I will not.
You will not.
That's my one summer conflict, and it's work-related, sadly, so. All right, well, we can talk about
Okay.
late August. So, June 27th, July 18th, and July 25th, and August 8th. You got that, Russ?
Got it.
Okay. There's no non-public this evening. Any other comments from the board, or?
I just have one, I'm
Go,
sorry.
please.
When
Yeah.
you had asked us earlier if we had anything else for Russ, if we're gonna kick off the new, website July 1st, we have to have that policy to look at.
Russ and I talked about putting that on the agenda for the 27th.
Okay,
And we don't,
probably
just so everybody's aware, the July 1st conversion date, if you will, for the website is something we control.
Thank you.
So if you don't want to do it July 1st, we certainly don't have to make that call.
That, I just wanted to make sure, that's all.
Yeah, there's flexibility built into that date.
Yep.
Yes, thank
No,
you.
that was a good question. One last thing, Mr. Dean, I like the idea of the video. Mr. Glowacki came up with the idea to videotape all of the chairs of various boards to do a quick interview as a marketing. I offered to do the select board, and I think that when we had talked about committees, we'd wanted the assistant town manager to be involved with the whole committees and revising and onboarding and all that. So if we could have Melissa involved in that process, that would
sounds good.
That would be great. Sorry to task you with something else, but okay. So with that, just a very quick happy birthday and all the best wishes to you. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Almost said happy 4th of July. We have one more meeting between now and then.
Happy Flag Day.
Yes, thank you. I totally based it on the...
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings.